From year to year, month to month, week to week, and day to day, people across the world are obsessed with a phenomenon that is professional wrestling. But why? 101 reasons to love professional wrestling. There are many components of professional wrestling that should be both understood and celebrated, in no particular order. Action figures. For centuries, statues were erected for highly regarded people. For many of those centuries, children also played with dolls. This could be a baby doll, a puppet, or anything one could play with and be enjoyed by a child. As commerce boomed in the 1900s, toys became a huge industry. In 1959, Mattel introduced Barbie, a blonde female doll with fashion accessories and playsets. The Barbie doll was aimed towards girls. It was a huge success. It would not be long before boys would get their own doll, outside of Barbie's own boyfriend, Ken. The term action figure was coined by Hasbro in 1964 in a marketing effort to sell G.I. Joes as something other than dolls. From then, action figures would be marketed towards boys as a masculine equivalent to dolls. Of course, now we know kids can play with whatever, and no one should care, but the stigma of boys playing with dolls would be erased with this marketing front. Superheroes, sports stars, television characters, and other popular personas would be made into small statues for children to use to recreate what they've seen and indulge in an imaginative world. Professional wrestling, of course, would not miss another chance to add another product to the merchandise table. Wrestling action figures actually go back to the 1969 Bullmark series, where the Japan Pro Wrestling Alliance released small plastic figures of international legends like Antonio Inoki and the Giant Baba, among others. Then, in 1981, the company called Poppy released a set of wrestling action figures as well. Still, the story of professional wrestling action figures must be told through the eyes of a WWF fan. In 1984, WWF would sign on with a company called LJN. The WWF Superstar Series would be launched. Standing in at 8 inches tall, each superstar came with a biography card on the outside packaging and included a poster inside. The consumer was definitely getting their money's worth, as these non-posable rubber figures would rule the land. LJN would provide us with 6 single series and 1 set of tag team box sets featuring the likes of Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Junkyard Dog, Rowdy Piper, and other icons. The history of professional wrestling figures really begins here. As of 2021, LJN figures would still be a collector's dream, with some rare figures, prototypes, and unique variations still being out there on the market. After LJN's contract ended and the company was sold, the WWF would have to seek another company to produce their figures. Enter Hasbro. From 1990 to 1994, Hasbro would produce 11 different series of figures, and various rings and tag team packages. Made up of mostly hard plastic, these 4-inch figures would finally have some articulation in the form of spring-loaded signature moves like big punches, clotheslines, drop kicks, and slams. Each figure would again include a biography card in the back of the package, but no posters this time. When they are cranking out 11 series in less than 5 years, there's no time for posters. Hasbro would have the same icons of the 80s as LJN and Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Macho Man, and others. However, they would also introduce the world to the first figures of the likes of Shawn Michaels, Razor Ramon, Mr. Perfect, IRS, Owen Hart, 1-2-3 Kid, and Yokozuna, among many other future legends. Hasbro collectors will pay top dollar to relive their childhoods and hoard mint uncard figures, as well as any weird variation they can get their hands on. Some have paid upwards of $15,000 or more to be able to claim ownership for figures as obscure as a rhythm and blues black-haired version of Greg the Hammer Valentine. This is just one example of other crazy dealings all over action figures. And let's not even get into the moon on the belly version of the Hasbro Kamala. And then from 1994 to 1996, professional wrestling fans felt a void of no company making action figures. Thankfully, in 1996, Jakks Pacific made the run-in. From 1996 until December of 2009, Jakks would capitalize on the Attitude Era with numerous series of the Superstars line and then tons of other series. Jakks made plenty of wrestling fans happy with bone-crunching action and with more articulation that has been seen or played with before. With Jakks, you get the first Stone Cold Steve Austin action figure, the first Rock, first Mankind, and first of many legends. Over this 12-plus year relationship, Jakks released other sets including the Stomp series, Signature series, and then the Ruthless Aggression set. Ruthless Aggression would feature 15 points of articulation and would be considered Jakks' most successful line. The innovations did not end there. The inclusion of the WWE Classic Superstars line would showcase legends, alumni, and heroes from the past. Then, on January 1st, 2010, WWE.com would announce a new line of figures with a new company, Mattel. During the ongoing decade of innovation, Mattel has created hundreds of WWE action figures. We've seen entrance greats, legends, and the awe-striking Elite series, the same size as Jakks, but a whole lot more detailed. These action figures have brought, and as of now, continue to bring, the action. In 2019, Mattel launched their Ultimate WWE series. These ongoing sets showcase the biggest stars with the most options for posing, often including multiple heads, with multiple expressions, different hand poses, and a plethora of accessories. The innovation continues to this day, making fans and collectors excited about every new announcement. Outside of the WWE lineage, professional wrestling action figures have been put out by other companies. In '85, AWA would team up with Remco for smaller sized figures. These two-pack saw Greg Gagne and Jim Brunzell, Steve Kern and Stan Lane, and the ever so awesome duo of Larry Zbyszko and Ric Flair. In 1990, WCW released Rubber Twistables, showcasing their biggest stars at the time, like Sid Vicious, the Steiner Brothers, and of course, Nature Boy, Ric Flair. Then, in the same year of '90, Galoob would drop their own line of WCW figures. A blink of an eye later, in 1995, original San Francisco toy makers would also team up with WCW for LJN comparable pieces of rubber. These big clunky figures would not be posable. Then in 1998, original San Francisco toy makers would also drop a slightly more posable figure around the time the NWO and Crow Sting were tearing up the Nielsen ratings. The same company would release figures for ECW in 1999. This awesome lineup had all of the ECW greats, From the franchise Shane Douglas, New Jack, Sabu, Rob Van Dam, and other extreme icons. In 1999, Toy Biz released what would have been WCW's last figure line. This set was by far the most detailed of any of WCW's run, and had articulation comparable to what would be WWE's run with Mattel. This was a set way before its time. Outside of WCW and ECW, wrestling figures would exist from other companies. The 2005 Marvel line of TNA Impact action figures existed. They weren't exactly selling out, but some were very nice figures. Outside of the dollar store knockoffs, the wrestling action figure scene would be desolate unless you were living within WWE's timeline. That was until 2020, when Jazzwares connected with All Elite Wrestling. These AEW figures are on par with the best of what Mattel has put out for WWE, but it also features the likes of Orange Cassidy, Darby Allin, Jungle Boy, MJF, and the rest of this star-studded roster. There does not look to be any end to this relationship. Anyone who grew up with wrestling would have a hard time not strolling by the toy aisle just to check out what's new with wrestling figures. There are websites delving deep into this world of wrestling figures. There are podcasts that cover past, present, and future action figures. Some of these podcasts even involve lifelong fans who also happen to have figures made of themselves. Yes, even wrestlers can be fans of wrestling toys. People collect everything they can if it has either financial or emotional value. Professional wrestling toys provide both. What was once a chance to escape as a child is now a chance to reflect on great times as an adult collector. Whether you buy the figures to open or quote-unquote let them breathe, as a former WrestleMania winner would say, or keeping them mint on card, a collection means a lot to a fan. If it's a $15,000 prototype, or just a figure that keeps that peg very warm. And at the end of the day, the dream is always alive in the form of action figures.